Hey everyone, welcome to the Stage Manager Guidelines and Tips tutorial. If you're watching this on YouTube, scroll to the description area for hyperlinks to specific sections of the video so you don't have to scroll through it all because it gets kind of long. Alright, anyhow, as the stage manager, your primary job is to track props, assign transitions, and take notes of all the small things like props that need to be built or things that need to be spiked the day of the show. And as we go through the process, any pieces that need to be worked as warm-ups or just anything unusual and special. Also, we expect you to keep rehearsals focused and moving, help the group stay aware of the time, and also help keep track of any people that are late. Give them a call if they're running late, send them a text, see what their ETA is, just to keep another eye on that, especially when it comes to show day, because sometimes people run late. In development rehearsals, your job is pretty easy. Most of the stage manager work happens between development and transitions. So a general overview of tasks. During development, you'll complete the stage manager notes and track the props in the props list and those templates are already in the Google Drive. And then, of course, you'll be acting. Now, between development and transitions, that's when the bulk of your work is going to happen. The main things you'll be doing is you'll be using the stage manager notes and props list to craft the transitions that you'll be reading off in rehearsals. 2, you'll create and print the final props list for the cast. And 3, you'll create and print narrator scripts for the magic book. That's all. Before transitions, you come into transitions, you tape the scripts in the magic book. You'll be assigning transitions as a stop and go and will make adjustments as needed. Now, the first development rehearsal, check in with your project manager beforehand and decide which one of you are going to be responsible for creating the story list as stories are pitched. Really doesn't matter, it's just kind of personal preference. If you are the one doing it, you're going to create a document in the drive and you're going to log all the stories as they're pitched. And this time there is no template, just be sure you create a document in the drive and all the sharing settings should be fine. So you create the document, you put the school title up at the top so we know what stories we're looking at. You'll notate the story title, the genre, and the teacher, exactly what's on the whiteboard. And as pieces are being cut, use the find function to help you speed up the process. If you do Command F and search for a teacher name or a genre, whatever you're looking to cut or narrow down, it's just a quick way to get an overview of what we're looking at. Now, we normally do 15 stories per show, sometimes 14 if we know that a theme is going to run long. So keep that in mind also as you're doing these searches and helping the cast narrow down to figure out what stories we'll be performing. After we finish a piece and it's ready to be checked and starred, you are going to log the props and fill out the stage manager notes. So here's just a tip: wait until we've filmed to log the props and notate all of the things in the stage manager log, because props and stage configuration can change so much from the first stumble through until the final filming that it actually saves you time to wait until things are solid. So here's how to fill out the stage manager notes. It will be your best friend for transitions, and it tracks every single logistic element. So if you look, the first column is the title. And this template, like I said before, it's going to be already in the school folder for the show you're doing. The first column is the title, and you'll see at the top it lists the asterisk and it says put in the book. Now, if a story is narrated from the narrator mic, you'll put an asterisk at the end of the title. Now, if the story is narrated from the PM stand, ultimately you're not going to need to print it for the magic book. There's no need for you to put an asterisk. What that is there for is when it comes time for you to create narrator scripts, you can just take a quick glance, and if there's an asterisk, you know you need to copy and transfer that and make it a narrator script. So basically, if there's a narrator at the narrator mic, put an asterisk. Let's see. Then next up, you'll enter the name of any narrators and where they're located. Typically, it's just going to be the narrator mic. Occasionally, it might be the PM stand. If your project manager is narrating, that's where they're narrating from. Sometimes it'll be offstage, backstage, whatever. Just make sure you write it down. And if there is no narrator, please just type none so it doesn't look like you forgot. It's just you've acknowledged, hey, there's nothing happening here. Moving on. In special notes, this is where you will notate things like if an actor needs a dresser for a major costume change, if someone in stilts needs time to get into their stilts, if someone needs to turn on or off the lights during the transition, if we need someone at the projector, if screens are being moved, if people are narrating from a backstage mic, if people are traveling into the audience. If we're going to have teachers make cameos, or we have guest artists or anything of that nature, that's where you want to notate it. And if people are on offstage or backstage mics, which doesn't happen as much now that we have the labs, but if they are, just notate which side of the stage that's happening on. And in the column that's for boxes and screens, you're going to log the location of the boxes on the stage, and when using the ladders, the huge, or the ice chest. You log the location and information. I mean, it's your basic like medium center, the long is down left, and you'll want to tell yourself, is it upright? Is it on its side? Just the basics that you need to help you remember how it's all positioned. Like for instance, the magic box, it's upright, it's open, on its side, like has that changed? You always want to notate how it's set up at the top of the show. General rule of thumb, make sure the magic box is visible, and if it's on its side, that it's open during the show. We just like the visuals. One of the things to notate when using the ladders, the huge or the ice chest, if it's critical to the execution or safety of the piece as far as like how it's positioned, you want to definitely notate that. In this spot, you'll notate which direction the hinges or the rungs need to face, if it's opening, which direction it opens, etc. So, all the details, all the things you need to know. And then once you've got that logged, you'll move over to props. Now, in the props list, you're going to ignore the first column, column A over here with the number symbol. You won't fill that in until after we have set order. So what you'll do, you'll enter the title of the piece, the prop, and the actor name. Now, when you are naming the props, be as specific as possible. If an actor is using a fabric, describe it as best you can. If it's a blue fabric, is it a light blue, a dark blue? Is it big? Is it small? Is it iridescent? Is it, sheer? Is it opaque? Now, in the notes section, it can serve many purposes. You can notate that a prop needs to be preset, and that can be anywhere, off stage, in the magic box. You can also notate that it travels, that it is part of a bundle, or the most common note is that it will be assigned in transitions. Now, I'll start with the note assign in transitions because this is the most common note and you're going to make it often. As we work through development, any props that don't directly belong to a specific actor, for instance, like pieces that need to be set, like a huge fabric that's draped over the ladders, or some small prop that comes from the magic box, these will initially be assigned to the stage manager during the development process. Now, you'll put your name and then you'll put assign in transitions in the notes column so that you know when you are making transitions that you'll ultimately be reassigning that prop. And then, so another thing we'll notate, bundles. This isn't super common, but putting things in a bundle can be a great solution in shows where lots of props are coming from, say, the magic box. But the magic box, let's say it moves around a lot and you don't want the props to all get lost. Like you have to have access to them quickly and you can't afford for them to be lost. Like for instance, we had a zombie piece where all these particular body parts were flying out. We wanted it to come from the magic box, but the magic box had a lot of stuff happening in it, and it was up and down and open and all sorts of things. So what we did is we picked a single fabric and we put every single prop for that piece inside it and tied it together. What you can do in that situation, you put everything in a bundle, you tie it up, you make it someone's transition to set it wherever it is, the magic box or behind them, wherever it needs to be on stage. But all they do is grab that bundle and untie it and it's ready to go. So what you would do there is all the props that belong in that bundle, you would just write bundle in the notes and you would be sure you include the fabric that they are going to be bundled in. Let's see. Traveling props. This is something that doesn't happen super often anymore, but it does happen. So you're going through development and you're notating props, and if you realize that a prop is used more than one time, you will just go in and simply put an asterisk next to the prop name each time it appears, right? And each time it's just going to have one asterisk for now. And in the notes field, you're going to type that it travels. And we'll come back to this later when it's time to create the transitions. So for development, that's pretty much all you do. When it's time to set order, you or the project manager can type up that list. It doesn't matter. Just talk to one another and figure out who is going to be the one responsible. Now, after development and before transitions, that is when the real work begins for you. First off, I recommend starting with the props list. You're going to fill in any gaps and put it in show order now that you know the run order of the show. So first things first, you know that column A with the number that I told you to leave open during development. Well, now you know the run order of the show. So you will just look at the list when we set order, and you'll plug in the appropriate number next to the title. All right, so here's how you sort. Select all, go to data, and sort range. You'll always click that it has a header row. And in this case, we're going to sort it by the number. So sort, and now it's in order. You can see every prop, how it appears sequentially in the show. And as I talked about in logging props, if you see something travels, you'll put an asterisk by it so you can track it in transitions. And now that we have the run order, we will actually document how it's tracked. And it's a really simple system. The first time a prop is used, it has one asterisk. The second time it appears in the show on the props list, it's going to have 2 asterisks. And third time, 3 asterisks, and so on. When actors receive their props list, if a prop has 1 asterisk, they know that it starts with them and belongs in their bundle. Actors know that if it has 2 asterisks, it doesn't belong in their bundle at the end of the night. So let's do a quick crash course of that notation. Now you see here, there's red fabric and it's listed with an asterisk. So we know it travels, and let's see where it is. The first time it's used in a piece called Bugs. So I'm going to do a find command, and I just type in the asterisk. You can scroll down and do what you want, but this is how I do it. It's a little faster. I scroll down, and I see the second time it's used. In notes, I will say it travels from Bugs, and then I'm going to go over to the prop and put a second asterisk next to the prop name. All right, and then I'm going to go back up to the top, and now that I know which piece it travels to, I'll notate in the notes section that it travels to in the night. So you continue to do this for however many times the prop you have travels, and however many props that you have that are traveling props. And also as you go through this list, now that you see the run order of the show, and also check and see if there are things that can be preset. All right, now that you've updated all the props, you are going to start transitions. So let's check out the templates and the docs. And this is something I'm going to show you that'll help you in transitions just real quick. Let's look at the school stage specs, all right? There is a spreadsheet in the general production docs folder. In the spreadsheet, it has every partner school listed in alphabetical order. So there's a school stage specs folder, a spreadsheet with all the specs, and a file with photographs. All right, in the spreadsheet, you'll find stage dimensions, but there's more information that's very helpful, particularly knowing the stage floor material. It really helps determine whether or not we bring the mats. I mean, obviously, level of physicality is going to go a long way in determining that, but also just the type of floor. Audience access. I mean, if we have actors that are going off of the stage to the back of the house, are there side doors they can go out? Do they have to go straight out into the audience? Can they be sneaky about it? This really helps. Lights for projection pieces. You'll know which side of the stage the lights are on when you're assigning the transitions, whether they're dimmers or switches. There are also backstage notes that help with how much space we have, if there are usually things that need to be moved, any kind of anomalies where the ramps are, stuff like that. And then, you know, there are additional notes that are really helpful. Some schools we perform at, it's on a thrust stage, so all the boxes have to go to one side of the stage. Some schools are outdoor performance spaces, so we can't do shadow or projection, and all that information will be notated here. And like I said, there are pictures in the folder where you can take a little bit of a virtual tour of the space to get an idea of what we're really working with. All right, so to begin with transitions, you are going to go in and make a copy of the run order, and you are going to rename it, transitions. You can do that, or you can just create a new document and copy and paste the run order, whichever you prefer. I don't care, just be sure it's labeled appropriately. And as you go, you're going to reference the stage manager notes and the props list to create your transitions. Now that you've created your transitions list, you are going to go in and type in the transitions between the pieces, just right here in this new list. And before beginning, here is the language of transitions in STS LAN. Some of it's going to be really obvious, but I'm being this detailed because we need to have this shared common language. So first off, if you set something, you're putting it on the stage. If you strike something, you're taking it off the stage. And adjust means you are adjusting the box or ladder or whatever that is already on the stage. You are merely moving it to its new position. All right, there are 2 mediums, 2 longs, 2 tinies, and 2 ladders. So the best way to think of them is 2 families. One is the stage right family, and one is the stage left family. They are named as follows. The stage right family is the right tiny, right long, right medium, and right ladder. Same thing goes for stage left. Really simple and straightforward. In your notation, just list the boxes by left or right. And I say this because the fewer letters that we have to read through, the faster and easier things are when it comes to actors looking at their transitions, and honestly when they're hearing the transitions during rehearsals when you're assigning them. Everything in Stories at Sora moves really fast, and our transitions need to be something to glance at quickly, to jog someone's memory, rather than a very detailed play-by-play of what they're moving, where they're moving it. That's really wonderful that people can be that detailed, and I truly do appreciate that as a detail-oriented person, but in reality, we need it as simple and concise as possible. There's only one huge and ice chest, the boxes that are hinged, and if they are used in a show, you just have to determine which side of the stage they begin on. And we'll go over the notation for that shortly. But again, transition language should be as simple and concise as possible, and we've codified this for ease and so that everyone is always on the same page. We're always speaking the same language. All right, so since boxes are designated as living stage left or stage right, the whole idea behind that is if a cast member is asked to set, strike, or adjust, let's say, the right medium, the understanding is that they are responsible for the rightmost medium on the stage. They know they're always headed stage right because the right medium is married to that side of the stage. So it doesn't matter, they're not striking the medium right or setting the medium from right. It's like set the right medium, strike the right medium. It's as tight and concise as possible. Now, while you will know in your mind the actual traffic patterns that would appear like a football play that's super detailed and super helpful, in this case, you don't need to write the direction of where a box is being moved, like down, left, up, right, whatever. In very rare exceptions do we need that. You're simply going to write that they set, strike, or adjust their designated box. The cast should know what the stage looks like, and if they need clarification, they'll ask, or they can write it in their own transitions. But the information of, you need to strike the left long or adjust the right medium down left on its side, that kind of information we don't need. It's going to get confusing, and it doesn't need to be on the master list that's meant to be something for people to glance at because we move so fast. In this case, the additional detail makes things murky. So here are examples of what your transitions will almost always look like. It's going to be super simple, and there will be a few exceptions which I'll go over. But here's an example. You'll have the actor name and that they are setting the box. So for instance, Dallas sets the right medium. Frankie sets the left long. Sean adjusts the left medium. And let's say Luke and Jose set the huge. Now you'll see here I put a parentheses and I put R in there for right. Now in this case, because there is only one huge, what you're doing with the parentheses is telling the actors which side of the stage they can find the huge. Now you make this determination based upon, ideally which side of the stage it appears on first, because you'll want it to start there for the least amount of distance to travel, or what is dictated by the backstage space, because you never know. So here, with the huge, you typically want to use 2 people. And here's an example, Dallas and Annelle strike the huge, and in parentheses, it says left, so we know where we're striking it to. Here's an example where, you are going to have to get a little bit more detailed. Tia adjusts the magic box upright. Now we have to get a little more detailed with the magic box, because if you're like, just adjust the magic box, well, that can mean a lot of things. In some cases, the magic box stays in the exact same like upright position, but it just moves downstage or something. In that case, you just say, adjust the magic box. But sometimes you have to be clearer, adjust magic box upright, or adjust magic box on side, open magic box, close magic box. You do have to get a little more detailed there. And here's an example of how you would include a little more information, because it's more than just setting a box. If you have someone who is setting a box or props or something, see if there's a way where it can all be combined rather than having one person bringing a prop and one person bringing a box. Like if there's a way to make it fluid and cohesive. Like for instance, here we say, Ian and Raphael set the huge. And in parentheses, I said open to audience, hinges left. So they know really quick, they're going to open it up and the hinges are going to be pointed stage left because that's the direction it needs to open. Now, an additional transition I might have here, if there's, let's say there's a black fabric being draped over the opening because ultimately someone might be hiding in it. Say, Raphael drape in black fabric, and I would put in parentheses in the huge because that's where it's preset. So that actually saves a lot of time. Maybe in some cases, you just have to, it would depend on the show, but maybe in some cases more time than having someone bring a black fabric and come out and mask and set things up. It's already there. They pop open the box and they put down the fabric, which they'd have to open the box before they could set the fabric anyway. Makes sense? I'm probably rambling. But here is an example. Sometimes the ladders aren't stage left and stage right. They often do stay on those ends, but sometimes at the top of the show, if there's fabric draped, you might have them preset. And then they can be accordioned and two people can bring them on and off the stage. So Duto and Sam set the ladders. In that case, we're assuming they're together, center. You can notate, set the ladders, and in parentheses left, in parentheses right. Another thing, if you have lights or projection, here we go, Dallas, turn on the lights, left, in parentheses. So I just know I'm headed stage left. Luke to projector, Brett to narrator mic. Sometimes it's really helpful if people, we don't always associate the story with its title right away. So sometimes it's really helpful if someone's headed to the narrator mic, just put that in the transitions for them. You're headed to the narrator mic. That also helps, when you're looking at who's narrating, that helps you know that you probably shouldn't put them on a transition, because if a transition is taking a long time, they can vamp. So just something to keep in mind there, like they already have a transition for all intents and purposes here. These are the notations you're going to have, and you're really not going to have a lot of variation beyond these. And honestly, those first few notations I gave, set, adjust, the right medium, the right tiny, the long, that's what it's going to look like. The vast majority of your transitions should be that simple. So they're short and kind of cryptic, honestly. So just some tips. Go through the stage manager notes and props list and put everything that must happen into the transitions before you start assigning people. You can do it as you go, but personally, when I start assigning people, I tend to miss things because I have a split focus. So what I do is I plug in all of the plays, and later I assign who executes them. Reference the props list, and if there are props that are temporarily assigned to you, put them in the transitions. You don't have to assign them right away. And as you work through the transitions, you will ultimately be reassigning and changing that name on the props list. So after I've gone on and on about all of the things about how we notate boxes, here are some of the exceptions, all right? If there are boxes that kind of remain on stage like a set, like they keep reappearing over and over, like let's say you have two longs stage right because it's a school scene, and you have a piece in between, and in the next scene, they're back on stage right as something else. It's okay. You don't have to have them both go, you don't have to send one stage left and one stage right. What you can do is have one person strike both of those boxes stage right. where they're going to appear again in a minute. And in that case, you don't need to say the right long and the left long, because that's just going to confuse people. Just say, strike the longs right. And then later you'd say, set the longs, and in parentheses, they know they're getting them stage right. I hope that makes sense, because at that point, they're not you don't need to say, oh, the left long is over stage right now. Just tell them the longs are right, and they'll know to grab them from there. Anyhow, so if it makes sense to strike both of the tinies or both of the longs or whatever to one side of the stage because there's a big setup or something coming, that's fine. You can absolutely do that. Just be sure that your notation at that point, you don't confuse the actors. At that point, I'm like, both mediums are the right medium, because the thing is, they don't need to know that it's like the right medium and the left medium that are both living stage right. If I tell them to set the right medium, they're going to go stage right and find a medium and set it. And so it keeps it from getting overly confusing. Yeah, so that's kind of a weird exception. But you'll know when those instances are, when it makes more sense. And then, if you want the boxes to go to a side of the stage that isn't their, quote, assigned side, and it's not as simple as like, hey, grab both the tinies and take them off stage. You would, to get it off stage, say, let's say the left medium is going to go stage right because it's about to come right back on over there. You just say, Jose, strike the left medium right. And that it would be one of the few instances where you would have that confusing language of the left medium right. It's the exception rather than the norm. And so in this case, it makes it really clear that, oh, I'm doing something wonky here, but it's still really clear because of the rest of the time, it's always left medium, set it, strike it, adjust it. And then unless there's that specific instruction to take it to the other side of the stage, there's that understanding that it's the left medium, they're always going to be stage left. And I know I keep harping on this. It's just so easy for it to become confusing, and I'm really trying to codify our stage language, basically. All right, so once you plug in the people, you've gotten all of your stuff written down, you see the traffic patterns in your mind, you're going to start plugging in the people. All right, and here are some things to consider when you're assigning people. Obviously, you want to think about people's size and their physical capability. Like some people can set or strike the huge by themselves. It's often a two-person endeavor, though. Some things to consider, people can take more than one box at a time. Someone can easily strike a tiny and a long, or even a medium and a long, or a medium and a tiny, because you can just set that other box on top of the medium and scooch it right off the stage. So sometimes what seems like it would be a huge transition really isn't. Keep in mind, we're strong and can do more than one box at a time. That doesn't have to be the norm, but if there's an opportunity, there's no reason to have 4 people on a transition when it could simply be 2. And then always think of who the first actor out is. If they're the first person out, try not to put them on a transition. And if they do have to be on a transition because it's something really huge, try to put them on something that's really light and quick and doesn't take a lot of time, and where they won't be the last person kind of lingering on the stage. Just in general, try to be as efficient as possible when you're assigning transitions. I mean, if someone is exiting stage right at the end of a piece, have them do something stage right. Don't have them come out and set a box where they have to cross the stage, go stage left, and go set the box. Generally speaking, there are going to be better options. Try to keep the travel distances as short and logical as possible. And sometimes that's just not going to work, and it's not really going to matter. But when you can, find those shortcuts and those efficiencies. Now, if someone is leaving the narrator mic, have them adjust something that's stage right, unless, for some reason they need to get in character. But if there's something that needs to be struck or adjusted stage right, they're already right there. Just have them grab it. We prefer that you don't use your project manager for transitions unless it's absolutely necessary. But if you do use them, if there's a transition happening stage right, try to keep them there and don't have them cross all the way across the stage, because we know they're going to have to go all the way back across to stage right. It's just an economy of movement thing. One big thing that every single stage manager does, don't over-assign transitions to yourself. All of us do it. All of us stage managers do it. And just be mindful and be careful that you don't. Now, as you go and you're assigning transitions, if someone is going to be setting props that are currently your props and listed as assign in transition, go ahead and change the belongs to person to reflect the actor who's now setting the prop. And at the bottom of the transitions list, notate things that maybe you need to check or preset, things like where the huge or the ice chests live. If there's something special like balloons with helium, we don't tend to use those up until maybe the run or music rehearsal. So just make a note of those little things that we're not going to necessarily have tangible in every single rehearsal. Once your draft transitions are done, you're going to prep the props list for the actors. All right, so you go to the props list, and first you're going to select all again, and you'll go to data, sort, and has a header row. And then you're going to first sort by belongs to, so the actor name. And then you're going to sort secondarily by the number, so the run order in the show. So what that means is it's going to sort by the actor name first, and within the props that belong to that actor, it will then put them in run order. All right? So once you do that sort, you're going to create a new tab at the bottom of the spreadsheet. And what you're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to create a new tab for every actor in the show. The fastest way I do it, I like to copy and paste that actor's information and I just plug it into their spreadsheet. You can do this however you want. I've found this is working within Google the fastest way to do it. But that said, you can do it however you want. I know some people still like to download into Excel and print that way with page breaks. Just showing you what I've found is the fastest method for me. Now, one of the things when you print, you're going to want to orient the page properly. So let me show you how to do that. I can show you in Google. If you are in Excel, you're going to have, I believe it's just under the basic file settings and page setup that you're going to go in and you're going to put it in landscape mode. All right, so then you're going to print all of the copies, a copy of every single props list. And when you, and then you're just going to bring it to the rehearsal space and put it in the props folder. Now, as we go through the process, actors will update their props list by hand if there are changes or additions. You don't need to print a new props list. The thing I do ask is after transitions are done, you take those props lists because the actors should turn them into you every night. They should put them in their folder and you keep track of that folder and make sure that it travels to the show. But after transitions, I do ask that you take the props lists where the actors have made their own personal notes and you update the master prop list from that. But you do not have to reprint props lists. And actually at that point, it's a bad idea too because people have personalized it and done their stuff. And there's just no need to kill extra trees. So just don't kill extra trees. There's no need to. All right, and before you get to transitions, one of the next things you're going to do, you're going to create the narrator scripts. Now, by this point, after development, before transitions, your PM should be caught up with all of the scripts. So what happens, you're going to go in and create a folder that is titled Narrator Scripts. Fancy that. You're going to go into the final cast scripts folder. And honestly, if your PM is at the point where they have the music scripts completed, I would use those. So just if there's anything in the music scripts folder, great, use those. If not, final cast scripts are fine. All right. So this is the point where those little asterisks you put in next to the title of a piece, if it's narrated, this is where it comes in really handy. So you've created your narrator scripts folder. You go into the final cast scripts or music scripts folder, whichever one, if the music scripts are available, again, you want to use those. You're going to go through and select every script that you need to print a copy of for the magic book. So you select all of them. You're going to right click and make a copy. Now once the copies are made, you are going to move them to the narrator scripts folder. All right, now once you've moved them, you're going to go through and you'll open each script and you're going to format it for the narrator book. So one of the things, hopefully your PM has updated and put the number, the run order number, next to the title. If they haven't, please go ahead and do that. The actors have told me it's very, very helpful for them to have those numbers there, because you pick it up and even if you're not exactly sure, mine was number 9, you know where we are in the show in a general sense. So it just really helps them with speed during the show to find their script. So you'll go through, put the number in if it's not already there. Make the title roughly like 14, 16 point script, font size, just, something large and easily read. And then you're going to do a little surgery on the scripts themselves. Now, if it's the final cast script, it's still going to have all the information at the top about original story and casting and all that. Delete everything above the line. All we need to do is start with action. All right, so you'll delete all that information where it's just the title and it goes right into the action. You'll go through and cut out any like serious extraneous information. I mean, if there are like paragraphs of stage directions, we don't need it all. So, cut the extra blocking and keep it to the bare minimum that the narrator might be cueing off of. Don't eliminate character lines or anything. Just leave them in the regular size font and make all of the narrator lines like, I'd say 14, 16, even 18 point font if you really want. It's kind of up to you. Just make it big where it stands out. And then once you have all those put together, you are going to print them and arrive early enough at the first transition rehearsal to allow time to tape those into the magic books in order. And we ask that you please use masking or Scotch tape. The other tapes are much more expensive and they're heavier duty, so they tear up the pages. They tear chunks away and break the book. We don't want to do that. All right, so transition rehearsals, time for transitions. Now you've printed all the scripts and you have them in the book. You have your draft of transitions in the drive where you're going to be giving direction from. One of the things you want to do is be sure that we have a set of boxes on either side of the stage. So we'll actually be rehearsing with the flow physically that we will have in the show. Be sure that the screens are built if they're needed, and if projection is used, double check with your PM or the artistic director to just be sure the projector is set up. You don't necessarily have to be the one that does it, but just be sure it's prepared. Just double check on that. Now, in transitions, you're going to drive these rehearsals. After each piece, once we've run it enough times and decide that it's good, we're good to move on. The actors are to stop where they're at, and if they're not, you can gently remind them that's what they need to do. You will call out the transitions that you've created. And once everyone has received their transitions, I usually confirm to see if that works, if there are any issues with that. And if they say it's good, you say go. Now, you say go, we run the entire transition. And if it's messy, you can take it back and run it again. And in fact, you should. After the run, there may be some changes to the transitions, so be prepared with your computer after the run while we're taking notes to maybe make some updates. If transitions are sloppy after the run, be ready to do a cue to cue where you just go, boom, this is the setup for this piece, and break and go to the next piece. Just always be flexible. For the show, you are going to want to print 3 copies of transitions in large font, so 20, 22 point font, something like that. You'll print 3 copies, and then you'll print 3 copies of the run order in a big font. And you are going to tape a set of those stage left, stage right, and center in case someone drops their cheat sheet or just needs a quick reference. Don't worry about printing these for the run or music rehearsals. I actually really discourage that, 1, because there's no need to kill trees, but 2, that is the perfect time for the actors to really reference their cheat sheets rather than become dependent upon the backstage lists, which is, what we encourage. It's going to go much faster if you can just use the cheat sheet that's on your body. Also on show day, arrive at the tech call time, which is generally 1 hour prior to cast call. Wah, wah, wah. But that's just part of it, to come and be part of the management team and the tech team that gets things rolling. So those are the brass tacks. I know it's a lot of information. I hope this helps. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns or ideas, please don't worry. Feel free to reach out. Thanks.